Thing. Good morning, good morning. Hello, hello. This is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. Welcome to Philosophical Coffee. It is raining here in Brooklyn. So, I write an article every morning. I usually do it before or after Philosophical Coffee. I love it. I love it so much. Writing is my favorite thing in the world. And this one in particular really it gets me in the thinking mood. It really does a lot. And then I like to talk about or reflect on what I wrote, or vice versa, where I will write about what I reflecting on. So there's this. I go through a process whenever I do my pioneering work where I do conceptualizing, and then I think about it. I reflect. So there's a period of reflection, and then I really like zoom in on it and dissect it. And by the time I'm all done with that, I've basically gotten to the next part of my theories, which allows me really to open the door to my next thing. I had something that I wrote up yesterday that I'm like, oh my God, that just opened the door. And I'm looking for it now. Security is your relationship with your own authority. And no, it was something to do with, okay, I can probably do this. It was responsibility. Oh, I found it. Responsibility, accountability, and potential. That's what I wanted to talk about. Responsibility, accountability, and potential. I love the word potential because after getting into physics and like really stepping into that world, potential takes on a whole new meaning, like potential energy. So we talk about our potential all the time, and this is easily our relationship with potential is absolutely overlooked. Potential in a person that's undefined, you can feel when you're not at your full potential. And it's basically the accountability of yourself holding you accountable for your own potential. Are you living up to your own expectations today? And it's so funny because there's this internal conversation we're all having with the self that we don't acknowledge. And there's these states of awareness. I actually wrote an article on this yesterday, the states of awareness. It's on my website. And let me hop, skip, and a jump on over to my website for a minute because, oh, here it is, process. It's the process of awareness. And it starts off with oblivion, like you are oblivious to what's going on around you. Everyone is in a state of oblivion. We always start off with this oblivious nature. And then, oh, one moment. Sorry about that, excuse me. And then from oblivion, we step into this kind of something is up. And it's this period of just you kind of feel like something is off. Like A is not matching to B. And that's it right there. A does not match B. And you can feel it. And then you get into you've decided, okay, it felt like A doesn't match to B. Well, now I know A does not match to B. And I'm going to do something about this. So, this is the journey of the awareness when you realize you're going to figure this shit out. And it's undefined. We don't really know what we're doing. We just know that something is fishy. And that's what it is. It's the fishiness. Fishiness. This is going to be the official word for this is the fishiness. So you start off with your oblivion, and then something feels off, and then you realize that A does not fit B. It feels like A does not fit B, and then you know that it does not fit B, and then you decide you're going to investigate this fishiness. This begins the world of existentialism. This begins the world of the greater self. And I love this journey because no one knows about it. And it's not talked about, it's not taught. It's you're left alone your whole life to either figure this out and you do or you don't. And we all know internally deep inside something is going on. And I'll tell you what it feels like. The best way to explain it is it's the sense like you feel like you're living in a matrix, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And it's that exactly. It's the feeling like something is off. So then there's a handful of us, and we start into the world and we're trying to figure shit out. And this is where people really get into the holistics, they get into chakras, they get into spirituality. They are trying to figure shit out. I love this stage. For me, I went into philosophy and existentialism. And I've studied everything. So I can, with the summation of what I know, existentialism, that's where you want to go. That's really it. Go into existentialism. But I'm huge on the theory. I have to see the omniscient point of view. I have to see the big picture. So this is me painting out the big picture for those of you who have to see the big picture also. It's basically your journey into self-awareness, but it's not just self-awareness or conscious awareness. It's conscious ethical awareness. And that's the end point. It's conscious ethical awareness. That is where you are going. That is the finish line. Is conscious ethical awareness. And a lot of people don't get there. A lot of people spend their lives on this journey and they die on the way. They don't make it. They lose interest. They get frustrated. Life happens. They give up. A lot of things happen along the way. And there's a few of us who are just, I got to know. I got to, because you know something is up. And it's conscious ethical awareness. So we begin this journey into conscious ethical awareness without understanding what it is we are looking for. And it's amazing. Whenever I talk to people, I collect interviews and communications with people on a regular basis. I just love to see what people think. And in all the collection of the perspectives that I have spoken to and entered into, the majority of them are somewhere between the 6th and the 8th perspective. And that's really when they're starting to figure things out, but they haven't quite gotten there. And they're like, something's up. Spirituality is part of this. Definitely there's a world beyond the abstract. And they're onto it. They know they've got something. And they've gone through the Akashic records. They've gone through life. They've gone through ancient documents. And they're trying to figure it out. It's absolutely a beautiful thing to see unfold. And everyone's hypothesizing. Oh my God, I love the colors of hypothesis so much. And that's where I'm at, is collecting all the different colors of hypothesis from people. Oh my God, I love doing this part of my work, where people tell me their translation and what they see, and it's beautiful. It's a rainbow. And I'm sitting here documenting my journey and where I am in it. And yesterday I composed the 12 ethical laws of human evolution. And it's actually this. And this is, it's not something I made up that's fiction, that is mine. It's everybody's. It is, of all the colors of the rainbow, of all the spectrums, this is what everybody has gone through. And this is the path. And it's the 12 ethical stages of perspective growth, first through the I of I, and then the U of I, the they of I, the all of I. And about 3 months ago, I found Pythagoras' work, and his work matched a lot of mine. And I went, oh, well, confirmation that it's right. And I sat down last night or yesterday and I wrote all of it. I wrote down the actual ethical laws, which is this beautiful map of this journey into the conscious ethical awareness. And you don't realize it's ethical awareness until you get to about the 10th perspective, the 11th. And even then, I have spoken to people who are in the 10th and 11th perspective, and they have no idea that it's ethics that they're dealing with. And I'll explain it to them, and they're going, oh my God, yeah, that's the journey. Oh my God. And then we'll talk about their ages, when they were, how old they were at different ages. One gentleman I spoke to yesterday, he was 11th grade. And he was like, yeah, I was talking about, and he gave me a list of the things he was focused on. And I went, oh yeah, that's definitely the 6th perspective. And it's extraordinary to see. Some people are 4 years old when they're in the 6th perspective. Some people are 5, some people are 10, some people are 20, some people are 55. And it's really extraordinary to see how this journey unfolds for everybody. And there's that point where it's the search for the omniscient. And that's really it, it's the search for the omniscient. We begin life in the first person point of view. And when you go through the I of I, you go through it again. And the second time you go through it, you're learning the second person point of view. And you go through it a third time and you learn the third person point of view. And the fourth time you learn the omniscient point of view. Now you can bypass these stages by reading the great books, by studying philosophy, much like a student who's studying mathematics. Now, there's two different roads you can take with math. You can be the creator and the author of math, like Pythagoras was, like Euclid was, and like Newton was. Or you can be the student where you are following the path of their work and absorbing the math that way. And then once you've internalized it through your subconscious mind, your logic, and also your identity, then you can become your own author and continue the work of the greats and become a great yourself. And when you've achieved that level of internalization, you can obtain omniscience. And you can learn these out of order. It's extraordinary. It's one of the most fascinating things to me is I've learned the omniscient, the third, and the first. You learn third person when you write a book. It's the only way. You must write a book. If there is another way, I would love to see it. But when you write a book, it forces you to be in the omniscient or in the third person point of view. Likewise, you cannot see the second person point of view if you have narcissism. Narcissism is an absolute roadblock to the second person point of view. It's extraordinary because it requires empathy, which you learn in the ninth perspective. And as you proceed down this road, this explorer's journey through the conscious ethical awareness, there's no map prior. There's no anything to go through. It's absolutely a pioneering. It reminds me of the age of enlightenment or the age of exploration, same time period, where a bunch of monarchs decided to sponsor a bunch of captains and ships to go sally forth and explore the unknown. And it's the same thing, except this time we're going into the self. We're going into the abstract. Oh my God, it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful time to be alive. And all these ships would go out and they would find new lands. They would map it, and then they would come back, if they could come back, and they would be like, all right, this is what I found. And I won't even revisit the genocide that occurred in that time period. But flipping it around now, here we are, and we're all talking about space in the 1960s and 70s, and we're all talking about space exploration, and we have bypassed and overlooked the concept of exploring the abstract. And the reason why is because with the abstract, your sanity is on the line. And it's this sanity is extraordinary because it's something we hold on to. We are very protective of our sanity because the moment you cross into the world of insane, boom, all credibility gone. So to venture forth into the abstract while also maintaining and holding on to your sanity, it's the only way through. While also maintaining your sanity is math, logic, and physics. The only anchor that you have. And the reason why is because math, logic, and physics exist in the abstract. Like these beautiful tethers of reasoning and intelligence tethered into the material plane. So that the material plane, the dwellers of the material plane, oh, I love my language. I found the word dweller this morning and I went, that's it. It's the dwellers of the second dimension. The third dimension is the abstract. And I wrote an article this morning that proves it. It's posted. So the second dimension dwellers are, well, everybody else. It's where we all begin. And it's this concept of dimension means two location points. And the location points is place and time. I am in Brooklyn at 9:19 a.m. There are my two-dimensional location markers. But the abstract gives you a third location, which is why it's a third dimension. Now we have a problem. It's not really a problem. It used to be a problem. Is you had second dimension dwellers who were terrified of the third dimension. And there's a lot of people. I predict about 25% of the population, more than, are now third dimension dwellers and don't know it. People who are transgender are third dimension dwellers. People who are asexual, who are agender, they are very much third dimensional dwellers. And people who see life in a spectrum, they are third dimensional dwellers and they don't know it. LGBTQIA is in the process of crossing over. They are at the forefront of this. They are the ones who are starting to see beyond the second dimension. And there's a lot of labels and terminology that's binary. Every time you see something that is binary. One of the things I said to somebody once a few weeks ago was, we have way too much two-dimensional words, two-dimensional labels, two-dimensional mindset to think we are third dimension. If we are third dimension, then why is everyone talking black, white, man, woman, boy, girl, young, old? That's two-dimensional thinking. That's binary thinking. And it's because we are two-dimensional dwellers. And there's people who are seeing spectrum now, which now gives you 3 points. You're on a spectrum now. And as soon as you get that spectrum, as soon as you start to see beyond 2-dimension, oh, now you're seeing 3-dimension. And there's this war, this abstract war that's happening right now that no one's talking about, because it is truly the war of the abstract. I love that, the war of the abstract. I need to not romanticize this. So the war of the abstract really is breaking it down into 2 different groups. There is your conformist and your nonconformist. The nonconformist are the ones who are being pulled toward the abstract, and they are labeled as the black sheep as a result, whereas the conformists are fighting for the two-dimensional dwelling, the 2-dimension. And it's scary. It's the unknown. That's all this is. It's the fear of the unknown. And there's also the divide of, I don't want to be left behind. So you have a lot of two-dimensional dwellers, and they're going to stay two-dimensional dweller because there's a lot that they've got to work through, a lot of fear that they've got to work through. And you cannot go through until you really, the words I'm looking for, you really need to make amends with the self. You really need to, there's no other word to say that. You need to make amends with the self. If you are not reconcile, you have to reconcile with the self. And if you do not reconcile with the self, you are not leaving that second dimension. Reconciliation is the only thing that's going to get you from that second dimension over to the third. And some people are regressing into the first dimension. That's hierarchical thinking. That's, I got to be the first. I've got to be one. I've got to be all. That is one-dimensional thinking. So you do have people who are stuck in the one dimension, who are thinking only in terms of one and no other option. This concept of we all have to be one religion, or we all have to be one race, or that's one-dimensional thinking. Two-dimensional thinking is the tolerance of two. Okay, fine. You can be either or. And there you go. Either or is very much the summation of two-dimensional thinking. But with the third dimensional thinking, when you get on that spectrum, there's a lot of change that takes place. And this has never been done before. We've had some stragglers where they were the first on the front line to cross over. Thomas Wayne is a great example of this. Thomas Wayne went through it. That's why he drew his cats the way he painted. Did he paint it? He painted his cats the way he painted them. It's because he crossed over. Van Gogh he went over. That's why he was insane. Insanity is the road into, but it's not insane. The word insane means loss of reality. Reality is defined as 2 dimension. But when you get into the 3rd dimension, reality becomes abstract. Reality has always been abstract. Everyone in the world except 2-dimensional thinkers will tell you, oh, truth and reality are subjective, but not, subjective or objective? Yeah, subjective. But the 2-dimensional dweller will insist that their way is right. They are adamant that theirs is the only way. Now we're back into that 1-dimensional, 2-dimensional thinking. So when you get into the 3rd dimension, it opens the world for all possibility. Tolerance doesn't even begin to clarify it. It's a celebration. Tolerance is out of the water. We talk a lot about tolerating and coexisting. This is beyond that. This is oh, you're different than me. Let's talk about it. It's an excitement. It's a joy. It's a curiosity, because when somebody is different than you, oh, you just found a teacher. It's beautiful. You just found a teacher. And now you're celebrating the open-mindedness. Oh, but there's a price. There is a price to this status, and that price is vulnerability. You are not getting here without being vulnerable, because vulnerability is open to receive. It's not weakness. That is something these second dimensions come up with to communicate the danger of. There's a lot of things like that going on in our words, where the second dimensions are saying a lot of things to instill the fear, to reinforce the fear that that is something we should not visit, because they don't want to, because they are scared. So they project their fear onto other people so they can get comfortable in their own safety of ignorance. And the problem is, it's putting this limitation on a lot of people who've already crossed over. So they're labeled as black sheep. They are made outcasts, and they've already figured out a good chunk of that road. And now we're back to that, moving along the path of the conscious ethical awareness. That the more consciously ethical you become, the deeper into the abstract you are actually walking. You are becoming a third dimensional walker. And it happens between the 6th and the 10th perspective. That's the transformation period. The second dimension is the first dimension and the second dimension. That is very much, first dimension is first and second dimension. When we get to the second to the 5th dimension, we are in 2 dimension. And when we get into the 6th and 10th, we are transferring. That's the metaphysical transformation into the abstract. Now, you're actually in the abstract at the 6th and 10th, but there's going to be a transition between the 6th and the 10th. When you get to the 10th perspective, you're through the transformation. You're no longer feeling it, and you've adapted. By the time you get to the 10th perspective, you are officially in the abstract world. Now, you stopped, and as soon as 7th perspective hits, 7th perspective, you stop seeing gender. You can't see it anymore. It's extraordinary. It's an amazing phenomenon. When I crossed into the 7th perspective, everything became transgender. I could see man, woman, and all in everybody. It's extraordinary. Gender, sexuality stopped existing. It was like, oh, those are binary labels set to conform man. It was extraordinary. Age doesn't exist anymore. Time doesn't exist as the second dimension dwellers know it. Time is something, and time is something completely different over here. And it was funny because I keep telling people, I can't predict when. I have no idea when anything takes place. And I've been pondering why I can't figure out when. Even last night, I was having a conversation with somebody, and I'm going, I have no idea why I can't figure out when. This morning, I wrote this article, and oh, that's why I can't figure out when. It's because when does not exist in the abstract. That's why. There is no when over here. When exists in the second dimension. In the third dimension, there is no when. When there is no when. It happens when it happens. Now, and the reason why is because time is not consistent. Time is not consistent. It's measurable, but it's not consistent. And this is why we feel like 10 minutes has passed when it's an hour. Sometimes it feels like, oh my God, it feels like I've been here for 5 days when it's been 5 minutes. And it's because time is measurable, but it's not consistent. And especially when you get over into the third dimension, it's nothing. It's absolutely inconsistent. So our ability to establish time and make predictions on time goes out the window. And it's so funny. Everybody in my circle is a third dimension walker. Everybody in my circle. They've been here for a while. And I've got a couple people who are wanting to get here, who are craving to get here. Other people who are here, who've been here for a long time and had no idea what it is. And I'm going over all the terminology with them. I'm teaching them the language of the third dimension, and they're looking at it and they're going, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." Oh, this, and they're plugging it into their life, and they're adopting the language. So now in my circles, we're all talking with this language, and it's fully adapted over now. Like, we have a community in the third dimension now where we're all conversing. We all have our language. We all have our mindsets, and we're all like-minded. We all get it because we're all third dimension now. And scheduling is funny. Scheduling is hilarious. It's the most amazing thing about the third dimension. This is how scheduling works in the third dimension. All right, when are you available? Yeah, I don't know when I'm available. Whenever, just ping me. Okay, sure. And then I have an appointment today at 11-ish. And that's 11-ish, and we're all gonna be anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes late, and it's okay, and who cares? And it's gonna go over, and who cares? So, and it's when I'm done, when we're done when we're done. It starts when it starts, and it lasts for however long it lasts. And that is time in the third dimension. Now, the second dimensions are obsessed with scheduling and measuring it and living by the measurement. I don't understand it. I can't. My daughter, she's crossed over, and it's extraordinary to see her because she's crossed over, and she would come home, and this is a third dimension environment, but the school was a second dimension environment. The contrast, oh, this is so vital. Living between the two dimensions is painful. Absolutely painful. I cannot. The more you're here in the third dimension, the more you stay here. You can't go back once you're established. And there's that transition period between the sixth and the 10th perspective. You can toggle, but the more you get closer to the abstract, the deeper into this you go, the more you go, yeah, I can't. I'm done. And we have people here who are teaching others how to adapt and conform. Well, not conform, adapt. It's not conforming, it's adapting. And we teach them how to set things up so they're self-sufficient, so they're completely independent of the second dimension. It's a mindset. The whole damn thing is a mindset. It's the best thing. It's just a mindset. Society has only ever been a mindset. And it asks the question, well, if this is just a mindset, and it is, why would I ever choose that mindset? Because mindset is a choice. The rat race is a mindset. The government is a mindset. All governments are mindsets. Rules are mindsets. So if you can choose this, and it is a choice, why would you ever choose that one? So suddenly I can choose whatever I want, right? Yeah. You can choose whatever you want. Anything I want, anything you want, anything you want. You are your own authority. Well, that one gave me mental illness. Yeah, same here. And it's unanimous. We're all like, yeah, that one gave us mental illness too. And I can be free here? Oh, yeah, it's yours. Whatever you want, pick it. And the best part is, oh, this is where Mother Nature's genius is so beautiful. She's so gorgeous. The ethics are nature. We are born into this growth. Humans, that mindset interferes with it, derails us, causes the mental illness. So we're just putting you back on the track. We're teaching you how to get back on the track of Mother Nature, and then Mother Nature takes over. Go ahead. We call it the self-governed party of natural ethical law. That's how I identify myself. The self-governed ethical party of natural law, or something to that effect. It's on my website somewhere. But it's the self-governed party of ethical law. And it's absolutely Mother Nature. She does it. And it's at a point where I meet people. I'll talk to them about this. I'll provide them with the information, and they'll immediately identify with something along. Oh my God, I'm over here. Oh my God, my mother's over there. Oh, I can see where my father's there. Oh, my brother's there. This makes so much sense. Suddenly it's the whole thing just spills out, and suddenly we all know where we are. We all understand what's going on. The clarity is completely settled in. We comprehend. We understand. We're like, all right, process. Now, then the best part is you're self-governed. Now you can choose whatever it is you want to be. And it's unanimous across the board. I don't want to be that because that broke me. That derailed me. That prioritized its own ethic and agenda over Mother Nature's. And that's it really, is the system that's out there is literally compromising the natural law, which is why we have mental illness, is because it contradicts the natural law. So it's a mindset where if you can choose, then why choose that one? So we have this program where we're teaching people how to adapt. We're getting them through it. And then it's, here you go, whatever you need. Here's the self-sufficient tools. This is how to do it. We teach them, we train them, and then we set them free. Go be free. And it's beautiful. It's imagination and it's creativity. And they're all coming in with their own. It's like every person is their own city now. a city state. They were city states now, but every mind is its own city state now. And every individual is now recognized as its own country. And that's really it. That's why I wear a crown, is because every individual is its own country. Oh my God, it's beautiful. And because we're all following Mother Nature's ethical law, we are far more ethical than that system because we're self-governed. That's the fifth perspective law, is self-government. But you hold yourself accountable. You have to answer for, my God, we are our own worst judges and critics. We really are. And we use that to our advantage because we understand the consequence if we don't. Suddenly there's a value and a priority for everybody on the planet, everything on the planet, because suddenly we understand how we are all connected. And the concept of creating your own city-state within your own mind, and then this law, this universal natural law that binds us all, and it's highly compatible and integrated with physics. So physics, Mother Nature, and law and logic are just fused into this, and we're already hardwired for it. We are already hardwired for it. So we're building a school, and we are putting together a school. We are putting together the education curriculum, which is based off of physics, law, logic, and Mother Nature's ethics. And it's absolutely extraordinary. It's freedom. Like, it's freedom. And oh my God, is it beautiful? It is a world and a mindset of the defined. And the best part is, because the third dimension is a coordinate, suddenly it's quite literally, suddenly you know where you are. And it's the first dimension is our location. The second dimension is time. And the third dimension is this perspective, so that you know where you are within the third dimension. And now between time, place, perspective, oh, you know exactly who you are. Suddenly you're not lost. You don't feel abandoned. This is interesting, is abandonment. Abandonment, lonely, lost is real. Abandonment, lonely, rejected. These are abstract words that actually don't exist. They were invented by abusers to control people. The feelings are real because the mindset is real, but the concept was fiction. You invent the concept, and this is how the abstract works. When you invent the concept, you give it depth through a definition. That's what definition is. Definition is depth. And then through that gives you substance. But if you go back and question the concept, it ceases to exist. That's how the abstract works. That's exactly how the abstract works. That if you follow the concept, the definition, the substance, and you go back to the concept and you question the concept with logic, just a moment, my cat is literally, I had to run by licking, batting, and running away. It's like, oh, my cat. Okay, so you have concept, definition, and substance. And I want to talk more about the cat. So the cat just came up, batted my foot, licked it, and then ran away. It was like a run by licking. Okay, I love cats. So you have the concept, the definition, and the substance. And we don't question the concept. We just are dealing with the substance. And that's where the second dimension steps in, is the second dimension is all about dwelling in that substance without questioning the definition or the concept. And if you question the definition, oh, now you're reverse engineering your own dimension. I love those words. That is exactly what you are doing. You are reverse engineering your own dimension. So you are dwelling in a substance. That substance is literally, it has body, all based upon how you define it. Oh, this is existentialism and philosophy. This is so philosophy right now. Anything only has matter when you define it. This is a hypothesis. This is totally a hypothesis now. Nothing has matter until it is defined. Upon definition, you give it matter. Does it matter? I love the words. Does it matter? It doesn't matter. Let's talk about the word matter, how much it's worked into our language. It doesn't matter. It means it has no definition to it. You have to give it definition in order for it to have matter, or in order for it to be matter. To have matter, to be matter, is to have defined value. Value is matter. Isn't it beautiful? I love the abstract world. This is how you create anything out of the abstract. And it starts with an idea, imagination, or a concept. So create something. Let's say a cell phone. Star Trek comes out. And we have these flip phone thingies in 1960s, and suddenly people are like slapping their chests and talking to icons. And we're going, whoa, that's awesome. And somebody said, let's do it. Now they're defining it. That's what happens in invention. You are defining an idea. So an author, Gene Roddenberry, comes up with these ideas. Thank you, science fiction. Science fiction is responsible for a lot of this, by the way. Science fiction is solely responsible for so much of this. They think it. Somebody, an inventor, comes along and puts value to it and creates it into matter and defines it with invention. And then we have it existing in our own dimension in matter. Now we have a cell phone. Somebody else creates something in their imagination. They put it down in defined value of definition and invention. And then you have matter. That's exactly what I do. I imagined all of this craziness, this really awesome craziness. And then I sat down and defined it using physics and logic. Well, logic and then physics. And I went, oh, well, there you go. Now it has defined value. Now I'm handing it over to people and they're going, oh my God, that's made so much sense. Yeah, you got physics. I want to thank physics for this. That's exactly, I want to thank physics for this. This is physics' fault. Beautiful, beautiful. I love how much nature just like turns all over in this all over again. And the more you give it defined value, the more you give it definition, the more you invent, and you put it into existence through words. Words. And that's all it is. Invention, definition, value. These are just communication devices. It's communication. So it starts in the abstract world with imagination. It carries over transportation. And that is communication. Communication is transport. That's all it is transport. And then it drops itself down here into existence via matter and value. Because it has defined value, therefore it is. I think, therefore I am. Therefore I think, therefore I am. And it's this absolute beautiful concept. Now, time passes. Time passes. That has no meaning anymore. Dimensions go through people, and the two-dimensional dwellers have forgotten that they are the inventor of their own concept. They have forgotten that they are the inventor of their own concept. And they are slave to their own substance that they defined with their own concept. And we have forgotten this. This is where religion is going to get real sticky. Because as you develop a concept, and then you define it, and then you decide to uphold yourself to the defined concept that you have imagined and invented, well then, are you, well, Pygmalion. So now it's a question of who's the God, who's the creator, who's the inventor? Is it the two-dimensional dweller who revives it, keeps it defined through an imagined concept? Or is there a parent in a creation? And it's all concept, definition. And the best thing is over time, through the telephone game, the definition keeps getting reworked. And as we keep reworking the definition, as we keep revising the definition, it changes. Suddenly the concept is changing because the definition is changing. And then the two-dimensional dwellers hold themselves accountable toward the upholding of that definition. This is what tradition is. This is what culture is. This is us going, oh, we have to remember to stay loyal to the original concept. Why? This is where the third-dimensional dweller steps in and says, why? When we create our own concept, we can change the concept. Why? And this boils down to loyalty now. Oh, this absolutely boils down to loyalty. And loyalty is one of the most amazing things. I love it to pieces. And the thing that defines loyalty, the thing that gives us loyalty is our ethics. Our ethics 100% is what provides us with loyalty. And as soon as you define your ethic, which Mother Nature provides, now it's sitting down and going, okay, what is our ethic? What's going to be important to us? Now, there are the core ethics that Mother Nature defines. And then there is the ethical values that attach, the lesser ethics. There's the core ethics, and then there's the lesser ethics. And the lesser ethics revolve around the core ethics. The core ethics are defined by Mother Nature. And it's absolutely extraordinary to see how the lesser ethics can be catered and designed and shifted around the ethical core. And it's absolutely extraordinary. So now loyalty is one of those things where loyalty is assigned value. That's what loyalty is. It is absolutely assigned priority through ethic. And once we have that established, once we have it defined, once we have that absolutely all in place, it really falls into line. And it's in the process of thinking. I'm creating new concepts. To structure and redefine a concept, however it is you need it to fit into and around your own life, really puts a lot of authority into the dweller's hands. And that's really it, is we literally can create whatever matter we want by altering the concept. That is the ultimate authority. And that's really it. It is the ultimate authority to be able to have this defined concept and altering it however you need, whenever you need to do it. It's extraordinarily powerful. Really, truly it is. So that if you don't like something, you could just go in and revise it and change it however you want. And that's revision and ethics. That's absolutely the revision and the checks and balances. That's something I'm going through right now, is the more I put this together, the more it's all right, let's go ahead and I built it. And then it's all right, let's sit down and now let's hand it over to people and see where people fit with this. And that's when I found out, as I accumulated the different perspectives, how everyone fits into something here within the 12 ethics. And then I got to see the variations. And this is the most beautiful part. I love this part because this is all identity. This is very much where you can see how we're all identical within these 12 ethics. But then I could see how an identity would color it. It's like we're all given the same page to color. And we're all going to get different variations, like a kindergarten room of, okay, here's a turtle. Everyone needs to color the turtle. So we're all turtles. And, oh, we got rainbow turtles. We got brown turtles. We got black turtles. We got, I'm going to be a minimalist, and there's no color here on this page. It's exactly as it is. And I call it a statement. You know, it's extraordinary to see all the different identities playing around with the same 12 ethics. And that's exactly it. Oh my God, it's beautiful. And I've noticed it comes down into 3 categories: artist, the scientist, and the spiritualist. And I noticed that there's a hierarchy. This is my favorite part about my research right now. This is my favorite part, because every time I talk to somebody, I'm, okay, now here, let me ask you something. It's determining your perspective. That's one thing. But now, are you an artist first, a scientist second, or a spiritualist third? What's your order of hierarchy? For me, I am the artist scientist, and I switch. Sometimes I'm the scientist first, and sometimes I'm the artist first. I think I'm a scientist first. I really think I'm a scientist first. And this is, yeah, because, ooh, let me think about this. This is where it gets hard for me, is because I got to think about this. Because music was my first, but I was feeling the physics first, and I was feeling the logic first, which is why I gravitated towards music. But yeah, I think I am very much the scientist first, the artist second. It's a really close second for me, though. But definitely spirituality for me is third. For me, spirituality is just physics. But I'm going to see that because I'm a scientist. And this is where it gets really fascinating to me. So somebody else will come in, and one of my friends, he is an artist spiritualist. And I love it. I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. So to see how, in what order, and you need all of them. You need the integration of all. And here's the other thing is I still have spirituality inside of me. It's physics. For me, it's physics. But I still have it. It's very much okay, there it all is. And that's really what I want to say. Are you a physicist? Are you a logician? Are you are you an interpreter? And that's really it. Interpreter, logic, logician, physics. And that's really it. And this is the best part. And then we have language. We have the language. And language is something that it's literally the thing that connects. It's the connector to all of this. And there are people who that's their thing. And I'm trying to figure out if language falls under logic, physics, or interpretation. And I think it's all of them. I think language is the core of it all. And this is where it gets really fascinating to me because and here's the other thing is the artist needs science and spirituality, and the scientist needs art and spirituality, and the spiritualist needs science and art, and they're not going anywhere without communication. So communication is basically the boat. It's the ship. Yeah, definitely. It's the ship. It's the transport. And art, science, and spirituality are the thing that's going into the ship. And that is walking into the world of the abstract. So you've got the concept, the definition, and the matter, which is your second or first, second, or third dimension. And then when you look into concept, you can transverse. Traverse. Let me look this up. Words matter. Transverse. Definition. Set across made a right angle along to go to a transverse. Huh. Fascinating that I'm pulling from geometry. Let's try traverse. I think it's traverse. Traverse. I can spell. Traverse. Traverse. Yeah, okay, traverse. Thank you. I was confusing my geometry with my language. You could traverse through, oh, there's a Chevrolet Traverse, cool. So you could traverse into the defined and into the concept. And that's when you walk into the abstract. That's when you're now walking into the dimensions and you're questioning that concept. So when you go back and you start to analyze the concept, we were doing this, my daughter and I were doing this with history this week. We were looking at Thomas Hobbes. I do not like Thomas Hobbes. And we were also looking at John Locke. And these two gentlemen did a lot for the philosophy of government. And they lived in the 16th century. I will summarize. Their philosophy, well, Hobbes lived in the 16th century. Locke lived in the 18th century. Hobbes was 50 years out of the Dark Ages. True story. He was born 50 years after the Dark Ages. Translation. It was a third perspective saturated world. So knowing that, when I'm looking at Hobbes's work, my daughter said to me, well, that doesn't make sense. Oh, it makes perfect sense, actually, when you look at the perspectives. If you look at the writing of Hobbes in reflection of our society today, there's going to be a whole lot of, what the hell, Hobbes, you're an asshole. Well, no, take into account that he's dealing with the majority of third perspectives. Third perspectives is Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is more second perspective, third perspective. Now, Genghis Khan is third perspective. Second perspectives don't really go around bullying people and pounding them into the ground to say, this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to imperialize you and rape you. That's third perspective mindset. But that's third perspective mindset who has trust issues. But that's third perspective mindset who has trust issues and is an aggressor. That's Genghis Khan. Aggressor, I really need to emphasize the aggressor. It's not just third perspective. You can be a passive third perspective. Daryl Dixon is a third perspective passive. Merle Dixon is a third perspective aggressor. Genghis Khan was a third perspective aggressor. All third perspectives have problems with trust. That being said, Genghis Khan was a third perspective aggressor. And I'm looking at Genghis Khan and I'm looking at Thomas Hobbes, and I can definitely see where Hobbes would absolutely have his mindset and his philosophy the way it is. So, of course, his philosophy is going to reflect the behavior of Genghis Khan. And oh boy, does it. How to govern someone like Genghis Khan. Oh, suddenly our government makes a lot of sense. Oh my God, does it. I'm going to say this again. If you look at the foundation of what our government was based upon, which is that it was trying to govern the mindset of Genghis Khan, oh, our government suddenly makes a lot of sense. But we have now become civil, and many of us are now very gentle. And that aggressive governing style is now obsolete for a much gentler society. It needs to be revised. And the problem is you have two very, very different mindsets in our country right now. I'm talking United States. I know this is global, but in the United States, around the world, you have the divide of the third abstract dimension, which is a very gentle, peaceful, pacifist-driven country or mindset. City-states, remember, we're city-states now. There are two things that happen at the fifth and the sixth perspective. At the fifth perspective, you get accountability. Actually, it is accountability that passes you into the sixth perspective. So the sixth perspectives have accountability. The fifth perspective has self-government. And the sixth perspective has pacifism. We're pacifists. We are gentle, intellectual pacifists. But we are also a culture of second, third, and fourth perspectives. And I have said this so many different times to people. I am not looking to take down the government. We need it. And we need an extension. We need an extension for the people who fall into the sixth perspective mindset, the fifth and the sixth perspective mindset. And because we are governed by the ethical laws of nature, our ethics far surpass the laws of the government. They are more unethical than we are because we have the laws of nature and we hold ourselves in judgment. Oh my God, do we? We have to. That's who we are. So now there's a schism, a divide happening where you have the foundationals who are very much still requiring the construction of the government, and you have the self-governed. Now, fortunately, Thomas Jefferson covered this. I love that man. Where he states that government only exists with the consent of the governed. So it's simple. When you get to the fifth and sixth perspective, when you've outgrown the need for a government, you can abolish them. You can just stop consenting. That's the authority. But you can't get to that point until you're at fifth and sixth perspective. And this is where Hobbes made a very interesting comment that you give up certain freedoms. This really stuck hard with me in my brain when I saw you surrender freedom in order to gain freedom. That is very much the concept of the third and fourth perspective. In the fifth and sixth perspective, that doesn't apply. We're not surrendering any freedom. I would never ethically walk into another person's house without their invitation because I am governed by Mother Nature's laws and myself. And that's not ethical. There's nothing more that needs to be said. That is not ethical. For God's sakes, if I see a person sitting at a fireplace, I won't even approach the fireplace without first asking for invitation, even if it's a communal one. I did this. It was October of 2022, and I was at a Halloween thing, and there were outdoor campfires. and I wanted to sit and be warm by the fire, and there were like 4 people seated around this one fire. And ethical law, you do not approach a person's fire, communal or not, without first invitation, because that's a community now. So I asked them, may I sit by the fire, please, and warm myself? And then, of course, they said yes. And we sat down, and it felt primitive, and I felt wonderful, and it felt so like archaic. And I felt, oh God, it was very, very ethical. Oh my God, it was just warm and fuzzy. There is something about fire. Oh, I've done so much psychology on the fire pit. The fireplace is like the core of human connection. Boy, is that old, beautiful psychology. But the ethical person says you do not approach a fire. Same thing with a campfire. It was extraordinary. I was at this campsite back in, what year was it? This campsite back in, I can't remember the name of it, 2018. And we had third perspective neighbors who had no problems walking through our campsite, to the point where we had to call the police, and the police had to sit there and educate them. Like, do you understand the laws of land? You cannot do that. You cannot walk through an assigned campsite. It's literally equivalent to breaking and entering. True story. And they didn't understand it. They were like, third perspectives. They don't understand it. Now, we had the ethic, and that's in the ethic of you don't violate a boundary. I mean, it's basic laws of boundary. And when you have a fireplace in that center, you officially have a boundary. It's just solid. It's natural law. It's extraordinary. And it's the invitation of breaking bread. Boy, this is so old. This is like the oldest psychology. This is the oldest psychology. You don't get older than this. You really don't. It is the difference between animal and man. This is it right here. This is the difference. With the animal, it is assumed invitation. With the man, it is honored invitation. And that is the difference between animal and man. That's it, right there. An animal assumes invitation. A man honors invitation. And it all comes down to the boundary and the circumference, the perimeter of a fire pit. Beautiful. And either you get it or you don't. The people who get it are self-governed. The people who don't get it require a government. So Hobbes wrote that to gain freedom, you need to surrender freedom. And that is only for people who are literally fourth perspective foundationals. That is a foundational law. It doesn't apply at the fifth and sixth perspective. Does it apply at the fifth perspective? I'm going to say no, it does not apply to the fifth perspective. And I will tell you why. Because the fifth perspective needs to learn the ethical law of accountability. And that is it right there. Accountability. And you have not learned that in the fifth perspective. That is the lesson to be learned in the fifth perspective. What you have learned, so it's really the divide is the sixth perspective. So I would almost say that fourth to fifth perspectives require government. But sixth perspective, you officially have crossed over and you are self-governed. And it's that simple, and it is black and white. I was talking to my psychologist friend, and she was saying, it's amazing. As soon as somebody learns accountability, the therapy changes. And I went, oh yeah, that's the accountability. That's the six perspectives. No one prior to the sixth perspective can really, truly heal, because there's no accountability. That's where you blame people. That's where you're not responsible, which actually brings me back to the potential responsibility and accountability diagram. Oh my God. Potential. Wow. Potential. It is the buildup of energy. Potential. And it is the transference of potential energy into kinetic energy via action that is the difference between a talker and a doer? It's motivation, which gives you the momentum. And you get motivation through potential energy. But you have to max out your potential energy to trip your motivation, to get the momentum, to drive it into action, to get it into kinetic energy. You have to transfer your potential into kinetic energy. And once you do that, it starts to fuel itself and it becomes self-propelled potential energy. Now you're self-driven. Sound familiar? And that really solidly holds you accountable. It gives you authority. That's what it does. Your potential, when you're actually utilizing it and putting it in motion. Oh, look, motion, motivation, motion. Cognates. I love cognates. Actually, in that case, it's a prefix. You have authority. And the more authority you get, now it's actually holding yourself up to what's accountable, which I said it before. And now you have security. And I said, what did I say? Security is your relationship with your own authority. And suddenly, the responsibility of your authority really has a different weight to it at that point. My God, is it heavy? It is like, it was yesterday that I was going over this with somebody and I felt it. It was like we were talking about full potential. And I'm finally there. Finally. It happened this week, these last 3 days. Even yesterday. No, it was yesterday. I'm going to document the 12th of January. I had a moment just now where I went, oh my God, I missed my mother's birthday. It's in 3 days. And I'm like, oh, okay. It was this sudden weight of like just solid. I'm finally at full potential, true potential. And I could see the physics in it. I really felt the physics in it. And suddenly I'm looking back at my full potential and I'm going, wow, I can feel the authority. My security then was a consequence. I could feel my security settle in. I was holding myself accountable. I could feel my accountability working with my authority, giving me security, while my self-propelled potential just cranked out. And suddenly I felt this massive sense of responsibility with that power. And that is power. Power is what is generated from potential. This is just physics. Psychological physics. Trademark. And it's this real solid comprehension of, psychological physics. Trademark. And I'm just looking at this going, all right, now I know who I am. And to get there, it's just the 12 ethical stages of perspective growth. It is there the moment we say, something feels wrong, something feels off, something's fishy. And either you are tuned into it or you are not. And then you decide, I'm going to go forward with this and I'm going to explore it and expand it. And that's when the adventure starts. But you don't get to that point unless and until you complete the first 2 ethics. And you learn how to regulate yourself with the first 2 ethics. Comfort and adventure. Comfort, adventure, boundary. Over and over again. Comfort, adventure, boundary. Comfort, adventure, boundary. And that's it. That is your formula. That is everybody's formula. Comfort until you reach boredom. And then you go adventure until you reach a boundary. And then back to comfort. Comfort, boredom, adventure, boundary. Boundary is another, you feel the emotion overwhelm here. Overwhelm is right here. When you start to feel overwhelmed, overloaded, that's when it's time to put a boundary and get back to your comfort zone. And there is no time. Trying to figure out this concept in a matter of time is not going to work. I had one person I was working with, one case study, and she kept saying, but it's not time yet. Time? What time? There is no time. Your logic is your time. You really want to know what dictates your time? It's called rhythm and logic. It's called physics. Physics. You are the little bitch of physics. You are physics' little bitch. We all are. And if you don't really get your head around this, it's dead in the water. Every time somebody contradicts this, they have mental illness. Every time someone contradicts this, they fall apart. Every time anyone contradicts this, it doesn't work. Physics owns you. Physics owns your ass. And every time you think you know better than physics, yeah, physics is going to slap you down. I would sit there and drive my car, and sometimes I could feel the centrifugal force pulling at my car, and I could respect the physics, respect the physics, because it will own your ass if you don't. Respect the physics. I think that is my oldest thing that I have said that's my own. Respect the physics. That is like one of the very first things I learned in life. Respect the physics. Don't fuck with physics, because physics will own your ass. Physics determines your rhythm. Physics determines your logic. Physics determines it all. And when you understand that your rhythm and your math, your rhythmic pattern, your frequency, that's why it's physics, is what determines your time. Your time is actually your pulse. That's your pulse, your life pulse. We're gonna call it that, your life pulse. And if you are not aware of your life pulse, that's your real clock. That is your real clock. It's your circadian rhythm. And every circadian rhythm is different. I have a prediction that it's actually set to the variable of 12. I have a real hypothesis that there are 12 variations of the circadian rhythm. I have not proven this yet. I am not going to use confirmation bias before walking into that. I am going to have to do the math first and then see whatever the numbers come up with. But I'm curious if that matches up. I'm not going to become attached to this conclusion. It would be cool if, but if it's not, I'm sure Mother Nature has something more cool than that. But that being said, we all have our own pulse. We all have our own frequency. We all have our own rhythm. It's our life pulse. And this is why people struggle sometimes with time, is because your life pulse is not matching the rhythm of the system. The system has its own. The rat race runs by its own rhythm. And it contradicts Mother Nature. Oh, my God, does it. Holy shit, does it. And the more, basically, I'm gonna talk about this in music terms, because that I comprehend. If you're a musician, fantastic. In the metronome world, it is as if the fourth perspective is running at 67 points. No, not more than 67 points. It's got a pulse. I'm going to say 67, but it's not right. But it's also running, that's the metronome. That would be the common perspective. But you get inside a restaurant and it's running at like 120 pulse per minute. Yeah, it really is. Restaurants are like fucking fast. You get into New York City traffic though. New York City traffic runs at about 30 pulses per minute, if not slower. But that's New York City traffic. But if you're a pedestrian, it's something different entirely. Pedestrian, I would say the pedestrian walk is 100, solid 100. That's the pedestrian rhythm. Is the pedestrian pulse of 100. Now you get down south, and that pedestrian walk is going to be closer to 50. Metronome. Why did I not think of this before? This is so much easier to communicate. The metronome, because that's measured. That's measured. I can pull up a metronome. In fact, I have one right here. Yeah, that's me, all right. I'm sitting here with my metronome. Yeah, so I'm a musician. Does it even work? Or is the battery dead? My battery is dead. I have 2 metronomes. You know, I could do this. I can use the metronome. Oh, I got math in my hands. I just need a new battery. Oh, it's going to be an annoying battery to replace. All right. But yeah, this is interesting. Oh, look at that. And it's also 440 hertz. The sound of frequency is pitch. Oh, that's what sound is. It's the sound of frequency. Pythagoras was right. He said the entire universe is music. Beginning to think he's right. But I want to prove it. But I don't want to prove it unless it's the proof. No, I got to go the other way around. Never put the conclusion before the proof. Never. But I know how to explore that. I have to go the long way around. And it's in math and physics. It's in frequency. This is why I'm studying physics right now, is because there is a frequency in every one of us. Mine is E major. Now, that's the sound. And I'm going to use E major as mine because that's the one I feel. That's the one I'm tuned into, is E major. But what would the frequency, what would the hertz be of E major? Now that's documented. What is the hertz of E major? 329.628 hertz. 329.628 hertz. When calculated in equal temperament with a reference of A above middle C as 440 hertz, correct, yeah, the frequency of middle E is approximately 329.628 hertz. See pitch for a discussion of historical variations of frequency. So there's my frequency, is 329.628 hertz. There's my frequency. That's my speed. That's my speed. That's my pulse. There it is. Frequency and wavelengths of musical notes. There's the wavelength. Oh, beautiful. Now I'm at E4. Let's go down to E4. Oh, that's 7. That's E flat 4. I want to make sure I'm in E major. E3, E4 right here. Yep. There it is. 329.63. 104.66. That's the wavelength. 104.66. 104.66 is the wavelength. The reason why this is important is because if you can get the mathematical, and we can, this is how you need music to do it. If you can identify where your frequency is, and if I can identify, and I will be, what frequency the fourth perspective is at, we can literally lay out the perspective mathematically, and I know I can because perspectives are a frequency. The perspectives are a frequency because it's a wave, and the dimensions is within a certain frequency. So that the first dimension is here, exactly like a spectrum, exactly like radiation spectrum. Excuse me. Exactly like the wavelength, all of it. So the first dimension would be here. The second dimension is here. The third dimension is here. This is why it hurts. Haha, hurts. Bum. Because the second perspective is moving into the third perspective. So we're coming into this area, and it's all measured through the length of the perspectives. The perspectives measure where exactly in the dimensions you are located. And the original point is, boom, the Big Bang. The Big Bang starts all of this. Once we define which frequency each perspective is on, it tells you when and how much cognitive dissonance, which is also harmonic dissonance. I believe that cognitive dissonance is harmonic dissonance. It is frequency dissonance. It is frequency dissonance. Quoting Tesla and Einstein, everything is energy. Everything is frequency. Everything. So if you were able to lay out mathematically the frequency of every perspective, I could then sit down, we could measure the frequency of an individual based upon their ethics, but not based upon their brainwaves, based upon just their pulsing energy. This would be measurable. So that we could just literally mathematically measure some and go, okay, this is your frequency, this is where you need to be. But if you're trying to adhere to the ethics, because these are Mother Nature's ethics, they're going to have their own frequency because that's the way Mother Nature works. But if you are trying to live at the frequency of a second perspective when you're supposed to be in the 10th perspective, oh my God, that's going to hurt you. That's why we have cognitive dissonance, is because of the pain, because you are living within two frequencies. Ouch. Ouch. Now, my favorite key signature is E major. So I knew, well, there you go, 329.628 hertz, 104.66 wavelengths. If I try and live at any other key signature, I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to be in a lot of pain. Thinking. Sound is the frequency. Frequency is the sound of pitch. I had that backwards. No, wait. Frequency has a sound to it. Yeah, and that is pitch. Frequency has a sound to it. Frequency has a sound to it. Fascinating. Now, I know this. I've always known it, but I love how this keeps coming back to music. I'm a musician first, always. Musician first. Frequency was my first language. Energy was my first language. I was born in the third dimension. I lived in the third dimension all my life. That's why I was abused so horribly, is because I was trying to live in the second. I never was trying. They made me, but I never could do it. Whenever someone's like, get in the box, they're trying to get you in the second dimension. Yeah, they're trying to get you in the second dimension. And a lot of people are like, okay, I'll get in the box. A lot of people are like, I love my mommy, I'll get in the box. I didn't. I was like, no, third dimension. No, I love my imagination most. And energy and frequency were my first language. I was delayed in talking. Because I spoke energy. Yeah, the third dimension, by the way, is energy. The second dimension is matter. How do I know this? I don't know. I just know it because it's logical and it feels right. I'll prove the math later, but it's there. And then the first dimension, I don't even know. That's so beyond. I'm so far away from that. I don't even know. It's unawareness. Unawareness. It's oblivion. It's in the now. There is only now in the first dimension. Second dimension is matter. Third dimension is energy. The abstract is energy. And the material plane is the second dimension. The second dimension is time. First dimension is where, location. Which is why infants, where is mommy? That's why they say, where is mommy first? That's all they can think about. And then when they start to ask the question, when is Christmas? When are we going to Disney World? When do we go to Grandma's? When do I see Grandma again? That's the talk of 3 or 4-year-olds. And that's where we stop. Fourth perspective also. Fourth perspective. When do we start asking when? I think it's 3 and 4. 3 and 4. And then we never go further. That's your fourth perspective. And the fifth perspective, 5-year-old. The 5-year-old will ask when. We start asking when at 3. So we enter the second dimension at the third perspective. And then we never go anywhere. So it's where, it's when, which, or what. What? Where, when, what? Or which? Which dimension are you? Which perspective are you? That's what people ask me now. Which perspective are you? Which am I? Which? That's going to be the next question. That's it. So when you get beyond the sixth perspective, you start to ask the question, which perspective are you? Boom! And it's already started. It's already in my community. My community is already doing it. Already. Oh my God, it's amazing. It's already in our language. Holy shit, I didn't even realize it. Where are you located? What time is it? When are we going to be there? The third question is now, which perspective are you? That is something my community asks. Whenever we talk about somebody, we ask, where are they located? And well, no, before that, we even ask them, which perspective are they? Every time now. I'll meet somebody. I just met somebody, and one of my peoples was like, which perspective is he? Boom. Holy fucking shit. It's already embedded into our culture, into my community's culture. We're asking the question, which perspective are you? It's extraordinary. I'm at a point where I've stopped telling people what perspective I think they're at. I've written it down and I'm like, you need to figure that out. You need to decide. I don't like telling people anymore what their perspective is. You have to decide that. And it requires self-honesty, though. And it's not something people beyond the sixth perspective can do properly. The problem is when you get a second perspective who comes in, and we got this a lot where the second perspectives were like, oh, I'm a sixth perspective. No, you're not. No, you're not. You are not a second. You cannot believe in God and religion and be a sixth perspective. You can't. You can't. You can believe in spirituality and be a sixth perspective, but you cannot be God, religion, Judaism, Christianity. Those are binary second dimension terms. It's not going to work. Those are too hardcore defined of the material plane. It was so funny. I was talking to somebody about it, and we were talking about God. And when you get to the sixth perspective, you start to get confused about who God is. Everyone goes through it. It's part of the process. This is metaphysical transformation. And the sixth perspective is like, oh my God, I'm a God. And then the seventh perspective is, that's the seventh perspective. And then the eighth perspective is, I'm a God. And the ninth perspective is, you're a God. And then the 10th perspective is, we're all gods. And then the 11th perspective is, I'm a God. And the 12th perspective is, I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. As soon as you get to the 12th perspective, who gives a fuck? There's physics. And there's physics. And that's what matters. Is there physics, there's logic, and there's math. That's what there is here. And that's really it. This is the core truth of this, is there's a lot of people who are so loyal to their God that they are not going to go through this. Bottom line, their loyalty for their religion is going to trump their own evolution. Loyalty for your religion and God is going to stunt your growth. I was a devout Christian when I began this. I was baptized at 13. I was a diehard Christian. I loved Jesus. And I ventured into this world saying, grow, learn, or worship. God or knowledge. Those are my choices. And I said to myself, I believe in God's power so strongly that I'm going to venture into this world of knowledge, and I'm going to walk away proving that God exists, and that no matter how far away from him I get, I am going to find my way back to him. Therefore, I'm going to go on an adventure. And I ventured into this world with full faith that I would be back to God. Well, I was right. I did find God, and I proved that they exist the other day. I literally have a mathematical formula that proves that God exists. It's just not what we think it was. That's all. God does exist. I proved it using math, logic, and physics. And it is not what we think it was. But people are so loyal to their defined concept, oh, look at that, of God, that they won't grow. They stunt their own growth because they can't let go of the original concept. It's extraordinary. The thing is, Mother Nature says, oh, sweetheart, you have to grow. We have to grow. That's what evolution is. That's what change is. You're going to have to grow. And if you resist the growth, no. Mother Nature says, no. Denied. That's the way authority works. That is exactly how authority works. She denies all access to true self-authority unless and until you grow through the ethical stages. The information is too powerful to give you authority without those ethics. It's mandatory. It's a requirement. You want self-authority? Well, it's going to cost you. You're going to have to give up the loyalty to your God's concept so you can evolve and grow through the ethical perspective stages. And when you do that, you're going to gain the ethics to self-govern so you can have your self-authority. There is no other way. You have to prioritize your evolution and growth above your concept of God. The thing is, fear of growth is actually a lack of faith in your own God. Thank you so much for your audience. May the kindest of words always find you.